Okay, let's begin the review by taking a look at the muscles found underneath the chin and down into the neck of the animal. And looking for landmarks, the first thing we see here is the actual mandible itself. Hard, you can feel the bone. And we see a pair of muscles that run up toward that genu of that mandible. We see that the fibers on those muscles run this direction. These two muscles here are the digastrics. Left digastric, right digastric. If you look at the muscle below that and partially covered by these two muscles whose fibers run this way, transversely across, and you can see the linea alba running down through that, these are the mylohyoids. Here we find a landmark which is a vein running across connecting the two jugulars. This is a transfacial or transjugular vein. Approximately underneath that is going to be a hyoid bone. So we're going to find a muscle running here and here, which actually comes down, and there's a hole here where they injected the animal and bled it out. And there are two muscles, long muscles, running from the sternum all the way up to the hyoid bone, and these are the sternohyoids, here and here. The muscle running in this direction, coming off from behind the ear and running down toward the sternum, in this case is the sternomastoid. Again, it's got a hole cut out of it here at this point, but it comes in almost like a V. In this, it's running under these vessels from this side and here. You see the salivary glands here, the submandibulars, and the parotid running off to the side. And just in front of the parotid is a very large muscle, cheek muscle right there, which is the masseter. In turn, if we start to work our way down to the superficial muscles of the chest, these aren't cut out here, but you can see the facial lines that separate these muscles. And so working from inferior to superior, coming down in the xiphoid or the xiphoid process would lie right underneath here. So you see a band of muscle running this way. This is the xiphi humoralis running from the xiphoid process to the humerus. Right above that, coming at a little bit more stark angle, is this muscle running up through here, here, and here. Again, running this direction across. This is the pectoralis minor. Up in front of that, more superior, or more anterior, is this muscle, which actually comes and runs all the way up underneath this. This is the pectoralis major, and lying over the top of the pectoralis major is this band of muscle running right across here, which is the pecto antebrachialis. So xiphihumoralis, pectoralis minor, pectoralis major, pecto antebrachialis.
We're now going to do the superficial shoulder muscles. We're going to start posterior and work our way anterior. The most posterior of these muscles is the latissimus dorsi, a big sheet of muscle commonly called the lats. This is the latissimus dorsi. Then the spinotrapezius, the acromiotrapezius, and up on the neck, the clavotrapezius. So those are the big trapezius groups: spinotrapezius, acromio, and clavotrapezius. Then moving down and doing the deltoid group, we have the spinodeltoid, this distinctive muscle right here, spinodeltoid, the little triangle, the acromiodeltoid, and then finally right at your shirt seam, the clavotrapezius becomes the clavodeltoid. So we have three traps: spino, acromio, clavotrapezius, three deltoids: spino, acromio, and clavodeltoid, also known as the clavobrachialis. The last muscle then in the superficial shoulder group is this band of muscle right here called the levator scapula ventralis. My landmark for the levator is always that it sort of dead ends into the spinodeltoid. So this is the levator scapula ventralis. I'm going to move to the deep shoulder, and we're going to reflect back the acromiotrapezius as well as the spinotrapezius and latissimus dorsi. And we can now see a distinct group of muscles called the rhomboid group, or the rhomboideus. And there are three divisions of the rhomboid. The most superior is the rhomboideus capitis. You see that's kind of loose. Then the rhomboideus minor and the rhomboideus major group that wraps around the posterior border of the scapula. Then we have the scapula, and right in the middle of the scapula we have a hard bony structure, which is the spine of the scapula. So these muscles are named in reference to that spine. We have the supraspinatus above the spine, the infraspinatus below the spine, and then just caudal or inferior, actually it's ventral, to the infraspinatus would be the teres major. And the last muscle then is underneath the scapula, is called the subscapularis. So again, quickly review the rhomboideus capitis, the rhomboideus minor, rhomboideus major, supraspinatus, infraspinatus, teres major, and then under the scapula is subscapularis.
Okay, we're going to continue now working in the abdomen and back up into the chest again, working at some deeper muscles up in the chest. But first of all, looking at the belly of the animal, we have this large aponeurosis, this large connective tissue sheath. There are no bones under this, and so muscles that come across have to attach to something. So we find this significant sheath of connective tissue here. External oblique, rather large muscle coming off the side and running toward the medial portion of the animal. We peel that back, and there are two other sets of abdominal muscles. One you see whose fibers run this way, and this is the edge of the muscle running around like this. This is the internal oblique, and it usually sticks closely to the muscle underneath it, whose fibers, although you can see here, are running this way. And this is the transverse abdominis. So external oblique, internal oblique, transverse abdominis. Now, this sheath of connective tissue here also covers two very long muscles that run from the groin region all the way up to the ribs and sternum, and you can see a hint of that. You can see an edge of them along here. Wide banded, very long muscles, and this is the rectus abdominis muscles here and here. Again, still partially covered, although we see some of it here. If we start to move up into the chest and looking at some deeper muscles, we took the latissimus dorsi and we folded that back as you saw before. You notice a set of muscles up here that look very much like fingers pointing in this direction, giving this kind of serrated effect to it, and this is the serratus ventralis on the cat. In the human it would be the serratus anterior, but we see those nice serratus muscles there. If in turn we lay back those muscles again and come down to where the rib cage is, and you can feel the rib with your blunt forceps running across here, and we see these very distinctive muscles then running over the surface of those ribs from the outside, and this are the intercostals, the exterior intercostals. And what doesn't show up here as well, though, are deep to these exterior intercostals would be interior intercostals, again involved in the respiratory process. Look now at some muscles that are found in the rump of the animal, down in here, and then we're going to take a look at some superficial muscles that run down on the lateral portion of the leg. If we look up at these butt muscles as they were, what we see is that there is a large muscle here, comes all the way down. It actually has two bellies to it, and this is the biceps femoris, origin and insertion. Right in front of that, working toward the head of the animal, is the caudofemoralis or caudofemoralis. Right in front of that is the gluteus maximus. In front of that is the gluteus medius. And what we see coming down here is the tensor fasciae latae. Now this is almost like a fan-shaped or triangular-shaped muscle, which typically has a very thick piece of fascia that runs off on the lateral part of the leg, which has been removed in this particular case. But the tensor fasciae latae. What we also see some of coming on this side is going to be the sartorius, most of which we're going to find on the medial portion of the leg at that point. What to do is roll the animal up a little bit onto its side, and we pulled the tensor fasciae latae down, pulling up on the gluteus medius right here. We find underneath that is going to be the gluteus minimus. Seems to be running at this type of an angle, sometimes sausage shape, and so we see that there: gluteus maximus, gluteus medius, gluteus minimus.
Moving to the upper leg of the cat, or the thigh, we're looking superficially at the sartorius muscle, the longest muscle in the body, the longest muscle in the cat. And if we pull the sartorius back, it's been bisected, we can see the quadriceps femoris, or the quad group, named because there are four components. Starting laterally, this is the vastus lateralis on the lateral side, vastus medialis on the medial side, rectus femoris running right down the middle, and deep to the rectus femoris is the vastus intermedius. So again, the quadriceps femoris, vastus lateralis, vastus medialis, deep vastus intermedius, and on top is the rectus femoris. Moving to the lower thigh, this muscle, part of the hamstring group, is the gracilis. So if we reflect the gracilis back, we have the semitendinosus muscle. That's the most posterior, the semitendinosus, the semimembranosus, made of two pretty large masses, and then the adductor group or adductor group that pulls the leg towards the midline, and we have the adductor femoris and the adductor longus. Making a correction here, taking a second look, this group is the adductor group. This is the adductor group, but this is two masses which make up the adductor femoris group, and then this is the adductor longus. So adductor femoris and adductor longus. Moving to the lower leg now, we have the calf group, and we have cut through the Achilles tendon or calcaneus tendon that wraps around the calcaneus bone, and now we can pull back those calf muscles, and we see the large calf muscle, the gastrocnemius, composed of the lateral head of the gastrocnemius and the medial head of the gastrocnemius, and running down through the belly of that we have the plantaris muscle. Right here we have the plantaris muscle, and then closer to the leg we have the soleus muscle. And so those collectively make up the calf, again, that help to extend the foot. Gastrocnemius, plantaris, and soleus. And then in the popliteal fossa, or this area behind the knee, we have a muscle that's kind of hard to see at this point, but is the popliteus. So that's the popliteus muscle that's responsible for turning the toes inward. Then if we move to the anterior side of the lower leg, we see this muscle. That's the tibialis anterior, large muscle, just lateral to the tibia, the shin bone that we sometimes bump.
Working with the foreleg now, the medial portion of the foreleg, we saw where all of these chest muscles came across, and many of them inserted on the humerus or somewhere up on this leg. We have some of those running all the way across here. But if we pick up on this muscle, such as the pectoralis major and the pectoantebrachialis, on the medial portion of the brachium, or the arm itself, we find the epitrochlearis. This muscle, which actually runs this way, if we pick that up and look underneath that, we see a variety of muscles. One muscle right here, which is running along the bottom of the foreleg, and we'll see the same muscle from the other side, and this is part of the triceps, and I'll come back to that in just a second. Underneath the pectoantebrachialis, running across, if we pull that back, we find this rather significant muscle right here, which is the biceps brachii. Biceps brachii. If we work our way out then onto the antebrachium, or the forearm, we have a set of muscles, four muscles that run here, that are coming down and articulating on the paw, and they will pull the paw inward when they contract. And we refer to these as the flexors. Flexor group, running down this way. Okay, we're going to stop here and turn the animal over. Working on the lateral or the side view of the forelimb or the foreleg. And this is the muscle we just saw before that was running, we could see from the medial portion as well. We said this is part of the triceps. This is the long head of the triceps. Then more lateral to that is the lateral head of the triceps. And if we move those two bellies apart, what we find is a muscle in between, much reduced in size, the belly of that, which is the medial head of the triceps. So the long head, the medial head, the lateral head of the triceps. If we pull up on the triceps as well and pull down on the deltoid here, we find another bulgy muscle right here. And this muscle is the brachialis. What's a little bit confusing, and it's a little tough to see on this dissection, is there's a muscle that runs right across the top of that, running obliquely or at an angle, coming across the top and running down here, and this is the brachioradialis right here. So brachialis coming across the top and running down is the brachioradialis. And again, what we have here are a set of muscles that come down and articulate on the paw, and in this particular case, extend that paw. So we have extension, extensor group there, flexor group antagonistic on the other side.